Hi everyone, I'm Reina Augustine and you're watching Community Impact. My guest today is born and bred on the Gold Coast, a fifth-generation Queenslander. She plays many roles. As an innovator, she sits on the board of directors at Gold Coast Innovation Hub. As a businesswoman, she is one of the founders of Paradise Distillers. As a community ambassador, she sits on the Police Multicultural Community Safety Advisory Committee. And as a creative person, she has been involved with the film industry for some time now, and she believes creativity is the key to thinking outside the box in order to create something new and remarkable. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest, Debby Lodine.
Hello, Rena.
Hi, Debby.
Thank you for having me.
Debby, born and bred in Gold Coast.
Yes, very few people come across people actually born on the Gold Coast.
That's right. That's right. So how was it growing up?
It has changed so much that I don't think there's anything left from my childhood.
Okay.
It's all. I actually grew up in Cavill Avenue, so we had my grandfather built a restaurant with apartments on the top and the restaurant below. So I grew up in the middle of Surfers Paradise when it was the heyday, I think. Yeah.
Wow. And the restaurant is still there?
No, we sold and they pulled it down. It is now Circle and Cavill.
So you are the fifth generation Queenslander. So tell me about the background.
So my great-great-grandfather came from mainland China in the late 1800s. He signed a labour contract that he thought was something else, but it actually locked him into coming to Australia by ship. So it was contract labour. And then he came over, and it was really, really rough back then, North Queensland, and we think he worked on the tobacco fields. But, he kept working, and during that time it was very difficult in China. There were wars, there was the Japanese-Chinese war, there's all different wars going on, so there was a lot of poverty then. So he believed that after a few years, if he brought his son over, because he wasn't allowed to bring his family over, but he could bring his son over, then he would be able to get a better life. And then he brought his son over, my grandfather, and then finally he brought my mother over. So back then there was a White Australia policy, so each generation basically, they left their families back home and they worked and sent money home, and then they just kept sending until 1973, I think, when the White Australia policy finished, and then my grandmother and my aunts could come over and finally be united after all that time.
Incredible, eh? Incredible story. So you actually are making a documentary, a movie on it?
Not quite that. I took elements of my story and weaved it into a short story because I believed, particularly last year, there was an increase in anti-Asian hate, incidents around the world and here in Australia. And for the last 10 years, I've been trying to advocate more stories of how other cultures, like the Indian culture, came to Australia for the last, 200 years that aren't taught at school. I don't even think the White Australia policy is taught everywhere. A lot of children, that you speak to them, they would have no idea what the White Australia policy is or was. And, it lasted 70 years. And that is a part of history. Even though it's not nice, I think we need to know it so that we can learn from it and move forward. So I wrote a short story basically about a young woman coming to realise what history she has from her own family and her own background, and wanting to share that as well.
So that's your story?
Sort of.
Okay. We actually won't open up the whatever storyline is. We'll keep it. So when is it releasing?
It's in post-production at the moment, so we're waiting on a few things, but there's a little bit to do yet.
So if people want to watch it, they watch it online, or are you going to give it to the Screen Awards or the film fair?
I'm going to hopefully enter them into some short film festivals and see how we go with that.
With all this COVID going on, we're missing all the fun, all the big awards, the Asia Pacific Awards we used to go to. So has that affected the Gold Coast area?
Gold Coast, well, a lot of the musicians and artists, they have struggled all over Australia, but we're pretty lucky Well, we're pretty lucky in
Yeah.
Queensland, aren't
Yeah.
we? We haven't had that much lockdown.
Because Hota is in Gold Coast.
Yes.
Yes.
So the home of the arts.
Yeah.
And we have a big outdoor stage there. So they were able during COVID, not lockdown, but during the last year, they could space people out. Mm-hmm. And so you would have big circles where one family sat and then another big circle where another. So that was really good.
That's so cool. Yeah. We really are lucky, eh?
Here we are.
Yeah. So Paradise Distillers. So
Yes.
when did it start?
Well, it started, I think, like everyone else last year when, lockdowns came through and people weren't buying. My husband's always sold liquor or alcohol and premium boutique stuff, and the market just dropped, remarkably. People were buying cheaper alcohol. And then I said to my husband, I think it's time we did something for ourselves rather than sell other people's products. So we created Paradise Gin. There it is here. So this is the first one. Mm-hmm. And it's called Paradise Gin because I was brought up in Surfers Paradise. And when I was young, we had a babysitter that used to live in the apartments above the restaurant. And she used to sneak us, my brother and I, into all the resorts in Surfers. And the Chevron Hotel was one of the most glamorous resorts on the coast. And this is a homage to then, this picture here.
Wow.
So I did a sketch and then my father-in-law, who's an artist, painted it. So each label is hand-painted and then printed on the label.
That's excellent, Debbie.
So each label has a story. And also that one has 40% Kakadu Plum. When we were designing the recipe for these gins, I wanted to keep it as much Indigenous Australia as possible. So there's actually 40% whole fruit. Kakadu Plum is a tiny little green plum found in Northern Territory, and it's hand-picked. It's not a commercial fruit. So, that is certified that it's, through an agency that's allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. And then we put it in there.
So the distillery is located in Gold Coast?
At the moment, we get someone else to make it through with our recipe, but we're hoping to build our own distillery very, very soon.
Mm-hmm. So, Debbie, my question to you is, growing up in Gold Coast as an Asian woman, what advantages and disadvantages you faced?
I was a very quiet child. You wouldn't know that now. I chat like there's no tomorrow. I think there were 3 Chinese families growing up. There weren't many. I was from kindergarten, primary school, high school. High school, there might have been one other Asian. University, I was the only Asian until maybe second year. So there weren't many other Asians around. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you
more in Brisbane.
So when did you start seeing the changes?
I think probably in the 80s when we opened up after the White Australia policy was abolished, and then there was more immigrants, more tourism opened up. If you remember the 80s on the Gold Coast, it was very tourist centric. It still is, except for COVID.
Yeah.
And then people started arriving, and the Gold Coast has changed a lot. Mm-hmm.
Have you faced any issues growing up, being an Asian?
I think you just get, if things are said or done, you just ignore it.
Oh wow, I like that.
I think that's just the way you have to do it.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking you this is because you're making a movie and it's based on what has happened in the 5 generations. So how did it affect your life? So ignoring is one very good solution, actually, because people talk.
Yeah, well, it's not, I don't think it was that bad for me. Mm-hmm. Obviously, my language skills are very good.
Yeah.
I get upset a lot of the media when they say things that simply aren't true, and I have facts to prove that they aren't true. And you have people that they find it hard to defend themselves, and that's really hard to take. And that's not just Chinese; that's all Asians, all multicultural. Yeah, everyone.
Yeah,
everyone.
So when I started working in the shopping centre, people used to come and talk to me with hand gestures and trying to explain. And when I start speaking, they're like, "Oh, you can speak English," and I'm like, "Yes, I can speak English."
Yeah, that's like in the 80s. In the 80s, I was always, "Are you Japanese?" I'm going, "No." And then as soon as I speak, They go, oh, okay.
Aussie right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So gin and also the community part, right?
Yeah.
So you are an advisor for.
Not quite an advisor. I think for the Asian community or Chinese community, quite often if there's something happening, the newspaper or the radio will call me for a comment or an interview because of my speaking skills and communication skills. And I believe that that's something that I should do, support my community. It's very important to me. But it's also not just the Chinese community. Last year we started a group called the Community Leaders Group. And if there was any issue with any community across the Gold Coast, we would if they came to us, we would try and find solutions and speak to the right, either the minister or the councillor, or even helping find food baskets for people, all that. Yeah.
For the international students, you supported that, and I remember seeing some posts. So tell me more about this Community Leaders Group. Is it called Community Leaders Group?
It's just a group that we put together on Facebook, basically.
Yeah.
Just our friends, because I've been involved with the multicultural in groups for a very long time, and we're all very close. So the ones, my friends, our friends, just got together and said, okay, this is happening, how can we fix it? It's not a formal group.
Yeah.
There are plenty of formal organisations around there that can help. But we just went, okay, well, you can go to this organisation and they will help you. You can go to this. It's just getting information out to people.
Sort of a contact point.
Yeah.
And putting the right person so that they can get the help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that idea, especially during this time.
I think it was really important. And it was important to also feel that we were doing something and achieving something, and not with, you have all these big organisations that spend lots of money and all that, but we were just a group of volunteers.
Yeah. Lots
of
of fundraising.
Friends, well, not even,
The big organisation, lots of fundraising, and so that's the way they helped the international students who were going through a lot of problem last year, and this year it really affected a lot of people. Along with that comes the mental health, right? The mental health, because people are lonely here, they're on their own, especially the international students. So what advice would you like to give people who are just come here as migrants and going through the phase of, homesickness?
So at the Gold Coast, there are many organisations that you can be part of. So 3 of the main ones that I connect with a lot is Multicultural Families Organisation. They do a lot of work with refugees, but they also do domestic violence. They have a domestic violence unit to look after people and help them. There's Multicultural Communities Gold Coast. They do have a lot of events, like they have one that's called Eat, Meet and Greet.
I like that.
Or Meet, Greet and Eat, something like that. Anyway, we get together every quarter, and there's usually food, and there's people from leaders from all different communities come, and we might have a couple of presenters. The last one we had was about vaccinations, and if you get it to the leaders, and they can take it back to their communities. And it's a great way to meet people as well.
Yeah.
And there's one more, the Migrant Centre, yes. Migrant Centre also help a lot of people.
So they provide kind of services?
Yes, and most of them are free. A lot of them, I think all 3 of them provide free certificate courses.
Oh, that's good.
They get funding through grants, and they might provide a course on logistics or retail or
That's really good to know.
Yeah, aged care as well.
Because many of them are lost. They don't know where to go. And especially when they find out, okay, there's a free course where we can go and learn, that definitely helps, because, everybody's skeptical that if we put a lot of money, whether we're going to get the right skills. But if any Migrant Centre or the MCGC are organizing that kind of things, it will help the migrants a lot. The simple example I can give you is, the churches in Brisbane. I just walked in one Wednesday and I saw all these cakes and coffees, and I'm like, whoa, it's Wednesday. I better make a note. I'll be here every Wednesday. So those are the small businesses, but it was for people who actually can come and learn English and talk to the ministers, talk to the priests, talk to the nuns for free. Right? But if it is not advertised, we won't know. People won't know, right?
Right.
So I really like the idea that there are organizations who do that.
Yes.
Yeah. So what role do you play in that?
I'm more of a contact person that if you want, especially last year I was in contact, or the Department of Home Affairs contacted me regularly every couple of months just to see how the community is and send me information that I can share out. So the Chinese community tend to use not Messenger but WeChat.
Yeah, WeChat.
Yeah, I think you're on there as well.
Yes.
So I would put it on my WeChat notifications, and I am also on a lot of groups, and I will send it to the groups as well. They're usually translated, so it's just easier for people to understand and just get that information out there. And if I hear or see any, say, someone having a racist incident, then I will actually report that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's so helpful, because there are many people who wouldn't go and complain. They just shy away, thinking that there's no help.
Yeah.
So if there's help like that, it really, really will help. Okay, so the Chinese community, let's come back to that. Is there any advice that you have followed that has helped you get through here in this amazing country for so many years, which you can part to the migrants right now who have migrated from China?
I think be patient. Find communities where you are welcome. There are communities that will welcome you. There's a group, I think it's in Brisbane as well, that they do a big dinner for any new people to the area. It's free for them, so they collect money to put on this dinner. But it's for anyone new to an area. There's a free dinner to welcome you, to find friends.
In Gold Coast?
Yes, I'm not sure whether it's in Brisbane. I think it is.
I have to move to Gold Coast. We've got lots of things in Gold Coast. Free dinner, yes, please.
Yeah, so they put on a free dinner for all these new people that have moved here, just to meet people. I think, because Gold Coast is not quite Brisbane, but when you're in a big city, people are in groups, and it's very hard to break into those groups.
Yeah.
So you just need to have that, the few introductions. And I think for business people, obviously networking is super important. Yeah. And I really want to see more of the Asian communities networking with all the, the Rotary clubs, the Lions clubs. I know up here there's a Lions club that's purely Chinese. Yeah. But if you can get ones, you try and get a few Chinese into the others, and there's some Indian and just multicultural. Yeah. Because you're learning from each other. The only way we can learn from each other and find out what's happening at grassroots is by actually talking to one another.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Example, there are cultures where we don't know how to greet. So, I always say that there was an incident which happened, that I went to this event and this gentleman handshaked and hugged everybody. Yeah. But when it came to me, he just said hello. And I was taken aback. Why didn't he hug me or, shake? After everything, and I went and said, hey, you never handshaked or you hugged me. He said, oh, I had an experience where your culture said that we cannot touch you. And I said, well, I come from India. I'm a Catholic, born and brought up. We hug and kiss. If we do not educate that gentleman, that person, he wouldn't know. So I think it's our duty to go and educate where we come from, how we act, because we have Christians, we have Hindus, Sikh, Muslims, we greet in different way. Yes. But everybody has to say that, yeah, you're right, that culture doesn't handshake, that culture doesn't hug, but I do. Yeah, I often, if I go to an event that's at a religious place, say the mosque, I find out straight away, what are the rules? I don't want to offend anyone. Correct. And it's respectful. It's just respectful to do that, I think. Yes. Regardless of who they are. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And,
everyone I've ever met is always welcoming from any culture. So long as you're genuine,
Yeah.
I think other people are genuine too.
Mm-hmm. True,
Yeah.
true. So it's good to take the initiative and go and say hello rather than waiting for the other person to come and say hello. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you're at an event and you don't know anyone, you don't just stand in the corner. You go say hello.
Shy. You go and introduce
Oh
yourself.
well, no. Some people it's okay. You just sit and you observe. That's
Yeah.
not a bad thing either. I think.
Judge.
Not judge, observe.
Observe, okay.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
But usually you'll meet someone and they'll introduce you to other people.
So when you say patient, be patient. Elaborate, please.
I think, well, I certainly need to be more patient.
We all do.
The media is very, very one-sided currently. It's very one-sided, and the things that are said that are not necessarily true, especially last year, that have caused a lot of grief in the community. So you have to be patient and think, okay, this is just, it's not true. It's made up. So because it creates anxiety otherwise. It will create anxiety. So I think sometimes you just need to let it go. Or you can find out the truth and debate it as much as you want and then get it out of your system.
Being patient and debating. I choose debating. To find the truth and then spread the truth rather than just sitting.
So there are places like the Australian Federal Police have a fact website.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you hear anything on the news, you might, and you think, you can go there and actually check whether it's true or not.
That's good to know.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. So I tell everyone I'm going. Quite a few people messaged me last year about different things, and I went, I'd check that if I were you.
So
Even stories of things that happened overseas, and you'd hear about it on the news, and then I'd actually message someone, living in China or America or whatever. I'm going, is this true? And they're going, well, not really. It's this is what happened, and then you go, oh, okay, I understand.
So that's the Australian Federal Police fact sheet.
Yeah, there's a fact website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just go and check. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I volunteered with policing for 2 years. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, we have different levels of police. So.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So back to Paradise Gin.
So we just released...
Where is it going?
Well, we just released this pink one.
Mm-hmm.
It's, again, native Rosella flower, which gives it its very, very light tint of pink.
Yeah.
And on the front, we have Rosella flowers, but in Australia we also have Rosella Birds. And I wanted to give an homage to when I was young. If you come to the Gold Coast, there's a Currumbin bird sanctuary where you feed the birds. So that's where this story comes from. And the next one is very, very exciting because we put some of this gin, 100 litres, into oak barrel that originally had Shiraz in it, and we're aging it. So it's going to come out a lovely caramelly colour gin, but it'll smell amazing.
Wow. So how long it has to age for?
We're looking at 6 months, but you have to test it. So possibly 6 months, possibly longer.
Okay. Cool. 6 months, not like 10 years or 20
No,
years. So sounds
that's
good.
whiskey. So that's why
Okay.
we went with gin first. Whiskey is a minimum of 2 years up to, so we have 15-year-old, 30-year-old whiskies. So we needed something which we could sell, fairly soon before we could invest in something like a whiskey or rum. Rum also you have to put away for a minimum of 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the gin came first. And the gin is just fun. There's so many different things you can do with it.
I don't drink, so I've got no idea.
Well, so my goal is when we build this distillery is to actually make non-alcoholic gin.
Like that.
Yeah, the growth of that market overseas is just going up exponentially. So I have to do a bit of experimentation and a bit of chemistry.
I like that. I like that. Not
So it'll taste like gin, but hopefully it
Not
won't
gold,
have.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've tried, but never got excited about the drinks. But maybe I'm going to try a gin, Debbie.
Well, the first
That's
one,
good.
a lot of people who say they don't like gin like that one because it's quite fruity, because it's 40% fruit. Some people, when they make something with Kakadu Plum, they just use a powder, the dehydrated powder, whereas we use the whole fruit.
Wow.
So you can actually see the whole fruit when we, soak it and whatever.
Cool. Talking about all your 4 amazing things that you do: business, innovation, creative, and community.
Yeah.
Let's talk about time management.
Oh, geez, don't talk to me about time management. There's one thing I did want to mention on this talk is the Innovation Hub have created these partnerships with India, which are really, really exciting. We're hoping to do, there's also the Birmingham, we have a MOU with the Birmingham Enterprise Community in England where they're having the next Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
And we want to create this entrepreneur's passport between Gold Coast, Birmingham Enterprise University, and I think it's called Think Bait in India. And so people can share information, or when we open up again, they could move around to each country, but we can share information through those 3 countries. We also, our CEO is a member of the Commonwealth Alliance of Youth Entrepreneurs, and she's done some stuff with, it's not WeHub. The WeHub is the women's entrepreneurs in India. The other one is, I've forgotten what it is. But it's another group over there, and they also, it's young entrepreneurs in India, and they do a lot of things with the youth.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that because, for me, I've always talked global. The world is so small now.
Yeah.
We can just go like this and we're talking
We
to
know
someone anywhere.
everything.
Yeah.
And know everything.
And know everything. And so
Yeah.
it's good to connect with other countries and find out, what's happening, how can we help, how can they help us. And trade, obviously, is one of our most important things in Australia. We need to trade to survive. Our country is very, very small, so we need to trade. So it's last year we actually, the Gold Coast Innovation Hub, we signed quite a few MOUs with Go Global World in Silicon Valley, Singapore, India, England, Russia as well. So we just did an accelerator with a Russian group.
I do have to come and visit the Innovation Hub. Sounds really interesting.
Well, it's a lot of the stuff you can do online. So with Zoom, you have a talk like this, and we can Zoom it around the world. So,
wow.
Well, I'm sure this show would go.
Yeah. Let's get into it. And thank you so much, Debbie. It was a pleasure having you, and thank you for sharing your journey with us.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, and thank you to the audience.
Thank you.